Hello everyone, Gary Waterman here, a former police officer. I'm going to give you an update now in relation to this very serious matter. I appreciate there's lots of other stuff going on around the world, but there's certain time limits and things that are happening in relation to this, so I need to get things out there. I appreciate it won't be a priority at the moment with everything going on. However, going to give you an update, show you some documents. Okay, just to summarise, it appears that a bank employee has been producing fake bank documents, and those documents are being allowed by the government and the police to be used to potentially commit fraud against the public. Really, really worrying. So let me show you some further evidence that I've obtained, which only strengthens how serious this is. Okay, so this is an email that I sent earlier today. It's from to most members of Parliament, Labour MPs, Bournemouth councillors. Okay, some Conservative councillors for Bournemouth. I'm also going to do other emails which will copy in all MPs from all parties. That is how serious I believe this is, or suspect this is. It's very, very important that they address this. Let me get to the main bit of the email. I'm hoping this is the best way to do this for you. Not the best at these videos. So as you can see, okay, I've also sent it to the Serious Fraud Office here, and the Home Office, okay, and the Independent Office for Police Conduct. And it's in relation to my complaint against Dorset Police and the Independent Office for Police Conduct. I'm going to read it all to you. Dear all, I apologise in advance for the length of this email. Due to the severity of this matter and it appearing to be deliberately allowed to continue, I have copied most MPs from all parties. Further duplicate emails to follow, because I couldn't fit them all in on this one. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, the Serious Fraud Office, that should say, and others previously involved into this email. All of the Companies House details shown in attachments to this email can be verified through checks of the Companies House register by anyone. That's absolutely true, so anyone can go and look at these companies and see exactly what I'm talking about in these videos. My report to the authorities regarding this very serious fraud now sits with the Dorset Police Crime and Commissioner, David Sidgwick. This is after all government organisations and the Home Office have refused to intervene with this matter, as they should, and are appearing to knowingly allow an immunity from prosecution for bank employees to produce forged documents used in fraud, an offence for which anyone else would likely face prosecution. I have tried to allow every opportunity for the authorities to deal with this correctly by providing explanations regarding the evidence and taking relevant actions, but by everyone refusing to intervene, it has only emphasised how serious this matter really is. Now, this is the main crux of this email. Unfortunately, it now appears that David Sidgwick, the Police Crime and Commissioner, himself is connected to those possibly involved in the fraud. I am not saying, let me just make it clear, that David Sidgwick is involved in fraud, but he is connected to those that appear to be. And I'm going to show why. He has connections through companies. This is all very worrying indeed. Please remember I am a former police officer, recent Christian, still a shareholder of Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, and a victim in all of this. Many others will also be suffering what I have uncovered, as this is very likely affecting the cost of living for many people, often leading to depression, family breakdown, and sometimes self-harming and suicides. I was a police officer for 18 years, and I know full well that financial difficulties can cause these things to happen at their extreme levels. And as we all know, lots of people are suffering financially at the moment with the cost of living. I've attached a spreadsheet labelled Companies House Table, showing details taken from Companies House records in relation to some management of freehold companies, evidence of which stems from my company, Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. Please note this is a working document. So what I've done, I'm not going to show you that spreadsheet because there's a lot of information on it. There's a lot of names and companies. So I've taken all of the information on that spreadsheet from Companies House. Anyone can do that. Input them all into this huge spreadsheet. And you, by doing that, you can start to make links. So you can see the same people resigning and then becoming directors or secretaries for other companies linked to other previous companies. They're all linked basically. All appear to be linked. Almost all of the companies and people detailed on the spreadsheet are connected to each other in some way, whether it be by directors, secretaries, or addresses, and link back. Okay, this is a company called Swift Incorporations Limited, or other dubious startup companies as detailed in the Ham and High article below. Now, if you watch my other videos, you'll know I've mentioned this company. They actually started up our company, Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, and they start up a lot of companies, and they've been either a secretary or director for one day and then resign. Anyway, this is no coincidence, I believe, and I suspect that it could be. Okay, so chopping and changing and all the names collected and connected and addresses all linked. This is no coincidence, and I suspect that it could be to assist to exploit, defraud, and launder money through the various company accounts, with much of it eventually ending up being filtered back to those involved, whether it be through offshore accounts or otherwise. Evidence also suggests that those people and companies are affiliated with other companies throughout society to possibly assist in exploiting victims. Now, what the reason I say that is, for example, in our block of flats, when I was a director, there was insurance companies, okay, and those insurance companies were quoting over £4,000 more than a quotation that I got, and the directors, who I suspect are involved in all of this, and it shows from my spreadsheet that they are probably involved in it now, were accepting going with a higher quotation. Okay, now I suspect that's because somewhere further down the line they will get that money back to them through the fraud or exploitation. That's what I suspect is happening. So those other companies could be involved with them in that. You will also notice that addresses, directors and secretaries chop and change. This is a classic method of trying to avoid being detected in any illegitimate activity, such as money laundering, exploitation, or fraud. Okay, so they can absolve liability by coming away from the company or shutting a company down at whim, opening up another company. Okay, and of course, if you have a company with, for example, a management agreement where there's a complaints process in force for any victims, but you shut that company down and don't tell those victims, they're going to think there's still a complaints process. It doesn't mean diddly squat because the company doesn't exist, and they know that. Anyway, as you can see from the spreadsheet, there are people connected that factor frequently in these companies, one of which is, and then I've named a person there, along with Export Manor's former managing agents, from whom I acquired the forged bank documents that appear to have been produced by a Lloyds Bank employee. So I personally got those from the management companies. We have to consider, therefore, that all of these companies may be using these documents to defraud the public. Now, we have to consider that because they're all linked in some way, whether it be by address. Well, I've already explained it. I'm not going to explain it again, but they could all be linked. So they could be pooling the money and putting it between money laundering it through these different company accounts, you see. And then at the end of the day, using these bank documents to file false accounts and the rest of the money being defrauded away elsewhere. I've also attached a document labelled CH David Sidgwick, which shows screenshots taken from Companies House records for PCC David Sidgwick. I'll show you some of these in a minute. These show a company connection to the same person, okay, that is linked to all of these companies in some way, shape or form. Okay, where there's all a connection. So David Sidgwick, the Police Crime Commissioner, where my complaint sits in relation to all of this fraud, has a connection through to one of those people who factors a lot in it, okay, through Bournemouth School. David Sidgwick also has a connection to a startup secretarial company linked to 788-790 Finchley Road, okay, for one of his companies, which I'll show you in a minute, and a link through somebody else to one of a former NHS Chief Executive Officer and her company, one of her companies that she's associated with. Research suggests that the Finchley Road address appears to be notorious. Appears to be notorious for being involved in shell company creation used for money laundering and criminal activity. A news article by Ham and High from May 2019 suggests that the police / government were aware of the concerns of companies linked to this address and certain other startup companies, and there were suggestions it should be regulated more carefully. It appears that this is not happening and that the public are being deliberately exposed to risks of fraud. I have attached a link to this article below. Anyone can look at that. Ham and High article. I've also attached a document labelled NHS. This document also shows other companies' house records and previous news articles. You will see from these that there are even government / NHS affiliated companies appearing to be started using these dubious startup companies. This includes AstraZeneca UK and Nightingale. Do you remember the hospitals that were set up for COVID? 7 of them, I believe. They were never really used. They are set up with, I'm not saying they're involved in fraud, but they were set up with a similar company to Swift Incorporations Limited. Okay, so it's very possible, has to be considered, that all of the government funded, or sorry, public spending and funded money through the taxation system that was supposed to be used in this may have been defrauded in the same process. From this, you will also see that at least one former NHS Chief Executive Officer and now Director for Expo Manor Freehold Limited is not only connected to some, not AstraZeneca, but other companies, but other documentary evidence not attached, but which I have, shows that these are closely connected to an accountant. Okay, that they are closely connected to an accountant who has been using the forged bank documents to file false accounts for Expo Manor Freehold Limited and possibly their other companies for years. Now, I have lots of evidence showing that. Other documents also prove that this person's husband, who is a former Dorset police officer, had been leaked significant information about the investigation regarding my reports of the fraud by someone within Dorset Police, despite me having already named them as a prime suspect. That is absolutely true. I have an email from them with information contained in it that only Dorset Police knew that they would have given them, even though they were a prime suspect. Very worrying. Everyone knows about, all the authorities know about this. They're still refusing to investigate this properly. The NHS Chief Executive Officer then headed a campaign to remove me as a director, instate themselves, as a director, and reinstate a former director who had resigned when I wanted to view the bank accounts. And they proposed that they file the false accounts for the company as soon as possible. This is all absolutely true. This was after I disclosed how serious the fraud appeared to be to everyone within my company, as well as identifying fire risks within Expo Manor, which are still ongoing and continues to be to put the residents at risk. That is absolutely true. I'm still trying to deal with that. I'm liaising with the fire brigade. However, unfortunately, the fire brigade are affiliated and in fact very closely associated with the police crime and commissioner, David Sidgwick. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, Swift Incorporation Limited appears to be one frequently factoring startup company and had been trading since 1985. Okay, so they've been going a long time. But in August this year, applied to dissolve. This was after I had started reporting evidential links to the fake bank documents and then possibly being used to assist in defrauding the public spending money. There is good evidence suggesting that this could be happening through the taxation system and using companies linked to Swift Incorporations Limited or other similar startup companies to do so. It's a long video, sorry. On the 1st of December 2023, the Daily Echo, based in Bournemouth, printed an article followed by at least 2 others. Sorry, that's a mistake. That should say the 21st of September. I do apologise. I have shown that article in other videos. So 21st September, the Daily Echo printed an article followed by at least 2 others stating that a management company called Initiative Property Management Limited was being investigated by Dorset Police for fraud. Now remember, Dorset Police were discontinuing and taking no further action in relation to my investigation where there was significant evidence of fraud. I'm a former police officer of 18 years service, but they were investigating this company. However, on the 27th of October 2023, so 2 days ago, a further article was published by the Daily Echo, which I'll show you in a minute, stating that Dorset Police had conducted a search warrant of the premises associated with that company in the week prior to the article, a month after the first article was published. Unbelievable. Why is that unbelievable? Well, not unbelievable. Why is it ridiculous? And why does it actually show that Dorset Police could be involved even more? Well, being a former police officer, a search warrant would always be conducted as early as possible in an investigation to secure any evidence as soon as possible, not a month later. Why would you publicise that you're investigating a company in a newspaper article, not do a search until a month later? This suggests that Dorset Police may be allowing the opportunity for evidence to be concealed or destroyed to prevent linking the fraud directly to the police or others involved, i.e. anyone else involved that we're mentioning, potentially involved that we're mentioning. Companies House records link Initiative Property Management Limited, the company that Dorset Police have just been investigating, okay. Two Swifting Corporations Limited, okay, which is a company that's just tried to dissolve, which links Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, my company, the former NHS Chief Executive who is now a director for that company, former police officers, many management and freehold companies who are all linked in some way, shape or form through, whether it be address, a startup company, secretary or director, they're all linked. Okay, now I was led to believe that by other directors that they didn't have any connection to these other companies. And anyway, the main point is it links through all of that, it all links together, but there's a person that then links this to the Dorset PCC, David Sidgwick, who has the investigation or the complaint is sitting with him regarding this whole thing. Other documents not attached suggest shareholders within Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited who appear to have paid none of their service charges from 2015 to 2022 could be related to one of Dorset Police's highest ranking officers who oversees the department where such fraud is investigated. It's the same department that is investigating Initiative Property Management. Okay, that is the same department, the Economic Crime Unit, but they're not investigating my crime. This would mean others, including me, have been having to pay far more than necessary in relation to the building in which our company relates for years. This in itself is fraud. Now, it is fraud because if they're omitting to make their payments deliberately and then there's any form of deception used in trying to get away with that, then it's fraud. Now, I only knew about it because I've looked so in depth into everything and so many people started resigning. Okay, I wouldn't have known about this. Okay, and I've paid my service charge contributions all the time. It's only recently that I've refused, and there's going to be probably a court case in relation to it. The Daily Echo and all other mainstream media companies have failed to respond to my repeated attempts to contact them over all of this. This includes the Daily Echo, BBC News, GB News, The Guardian, The Times, Channel 4 News and The Mirror, just to name some. Why is that? I've told them that there's fake bank documents appearing to be produced by the bank, that the police seem to be allowing it, that government appeared to be involved, government officials appear to be involved, and that it's very, very serious, and that management companies are involved, etc. None of them are interested. Why is that? I wonder. Absolutely everything I've said in this email is supported through documents which are safely secured and processes are in place to release all of this information into the public domain if certain situations arise. I've had to do that. I'm probably at very risk. I'm sure there's conversations going on about what they can do about me. I've had to make sure things are in place. I still may not be safe. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I could lose everything over this. I could lose my property in Exbourne Manor. I could lose all of my assets. I could lose my life over this. But this is the right thing to do. I understand how difficult this situation is for everyone, but moral integrity must prevail. That is, after all, what we all teach our children, or should be, and it must be at the heart of what those in a position of authority do. All right, so we all teach our children right from wrong. We therefore shouldn't carry that through and do the wrong thing in life, especially if you're in a position of authority. The public need to have trust in those that should be enforcing the prevention of such fraud, not facing mounting evidence suggesting they're actually at the very heart of it. I can't believe that those that appear to be involved are comfortable with this. This is a very sad situation and simply requires regulation of company registrations as soon as possible, along with an appropriate investigation regarding the forged bank documents that have been acquired regarding the finance of Exbourne Manor. It also requires a transparent regulations and processes regarding the management of buildings to prevent any further exploitation or fraud. It's easily done. You make sure that the actual bank documents are visible to shareholders and leaseholders, not typed up accounts. You make sure there's an official management agreement in place and that the company exists that management agreement relates to. There's other things you can do as well, but there is information suggesting that several high-profile deaths and prison sentences could be linked to all of this. It surely cannot continue. Now, I'm not saying that is proven or fact, but there is information that I have that does appear to be corroborated that suggests deaths and some prison sentences could be linked to all of this. Shows how potentially serious this all is. Here are links to my latest videos on my YouTube channel, and I've just given them my links to click on so they can look at them. You can choose, now this is to them, you can choose to assist in working against me, or you can do the right thing for our children's future by making a public address about the evidence being presented and appropriate proposals to ensure it can never happen again. I still have faith that the government and the authorities can deal with this appropriately. If they do not do so, however, then people will be justified in withholding their tax contributions until explanations are provided and suitable processes implemented to prevent possible fraud in relation to the taxation system from continuing. Okay, now don't forget, from my other videos, if you look at them, there's a link to the council, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council, possibly to this. Now, it could be that that system is being used to defraud the taxation for the council tax and any other taxes. Now, why should we be paying into that system if it's being defrauded and that people are getting that money going back in their pockets? Now, let's see how they respond to all of this. If anyone would like to discuss this situation or the evidence being presented, please feel free to contact me at any time. I can be contacted on this, and I've given my number. May God bless you all. Please do the right thing. Okay, so I'm just going to show you some other documents. Okay, and just very quickly, I'm going to show you the Daily Echo report that I told you about. So just to confirm that it does say, now this has just been scaled into a document. This is what was in the article. Police raided the business park as part of their ongoing investigation into Poole property management firm. And that firm, as you can see, is Initiative Property Management. This article was from 2 days ago on the 27th of October. Now, as I promised, these are some of the Companies House records. Anyone can look at this for David John Sigwick, the Police Crime and Commissioner, where my complaint sits in relation to this investigation. Okay, so he's got 5 appointments. So, in other words, he's associated with 5 companies on here. This is one of his previous companies, okay, that's now dissolved, okay. And these are just you can see it was dissolved in 2016. Now, I'm not going to show you the documents below this because I want to keep the information discreet. But you can see here that this company that David Sidgwick was related to was started up, okay, on the 29th of May 2008 and resigned on the very same day. And they are linked to 788 to 790 Finchley Road, London. And there you go, another one that factors a lot in all of this. Temple Secretaries Limited, again, the same address. And remember the Ham and High article, it specifically mentions this address. Why are the government allowing people in authority to be linked to this potentially fraudulent company setup system where these addresses, there's no one in those addresses that even relate to these companies probably. So that's what they do. They set up a company. They don't have to prove their address. So they just give an address. Okay, there's no one in there relating to this company. You can then easily get away with fraud and money laundering. It's just not great at all. It's really not good. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hopefully that will make sense. I appreciate there's a lot of information there. It's very complex. Everything I'm saying is being supported. Let's see how they respond. And God bless you all. Take care.